Have you ever wanted to invest into a city, county, or even country that you're not currently in and scared, want to make the move, but not sure if you should? Well, guess what? This video is perfect for you. After watching this video, you're going to learn about everything there is to know, whether the fears and the pros of everything related to investing out of state, out of city, out of country, and it's going to help you make the right decision to help you grow your real estate knowledge and your portfolio. And it's all going to begin right after this. Hi everyone, I'm Josh Tavares, investor and realtor with eXp Realty Brokerage. If you're so nice, if you can help us out, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell to get updates on our newly uploaded content. And if you guys are looking for great real estate investments, great cash flow appreciation at a low price point with great landlord tenant board rules, and you're looking to partner with us, then click the link below. Let's get on a call and get you on your way. And without further ado, let's get started. Now, I know for many investors out there, it's really difficult to get out of your city, state, province, or even country and begin investing because you're thinking to yourself, how am I going to be able to maintain this property, take care of tenants, receive payments, and everything in as such? And it can be really scary of a thought process. I know when we began investing, we wanted to invest here in Toronto where we live, but it was really challenging because the price points were so high that it didn't make sense for us and probably wouldn't have been able to work out for us at all, really. So we decided to go about a different route and say, wait a second, really educate ourselves into different markets and how we can go about having a rental portfolio without having to actually be on site and deal with concerns. Now, with going into an area, you definitely need to know key information and build a team around that as well, in terms of knowing your economic fundamentals. So you want to know the vacancy rates, the unemployment rates. Are there employers going about setting up shop there? Are there people looking for rental properties? Are the property prices increasing? Everything as such that makes sense for you as an investor to open up shop. You also need to know people in that space, in the area that you're in, that specialize in whatever area they do, not only just investors, but investors in that area. So if you want to invest, let's just say in Hamilton, Ontario, you want to know accountants, you want to have a realtor, you want to have a mortgage person who has a really good idea about investments, but also in Hamilton. So essentially you're talking to someone who has a really good idea of the streets, the neighborhood, the employers coming in, the economic updates taking place, the transit news that's improving throughout the area. You need to know all this information and you need your team to know, so they're going to be on the same page as you. It's really important that you have a team. Like, I can't stress how important this is, because you don't want to work with people who are just there to get a paycheck, know nothing about investing, and pretty much looks like you're speaking a different language when you talk about investing. So whenever you need their expertise in anything, they're pretty much just going to shrug their head and say, well, I can do everything. And then when things happen, it's not going to be as good compared to someone else who is an investor in that area, who's experienced and will be able to get the right resources, whether in their own field or somewhere else. It's because they have experience investing and in that area. Now, when we invested in St. Catharines, we learned everything about St. Catharines. We knew everything in terms of the employers, the economic updates that were taking place, transit improvements, the abatement programs, the vacancy rates, the unemployment rates, and everything as such, and everything made sense. We built a team around that, property management, we had investment realtor, mortgage broker, lawyer, accountant, everything as such, and made the correct moves. And essentially our fears, which were up here, went down and our knowledge went up, and we were able to more confidently make the move, where many other investors that were just learning the ropes, educating themselves and going to different meetup groups were not able to make the move because they had too much fear and didn't take enough action. And with building your team, it's really important to ask them the right questions and really screen them to know what their experience is. How many properties do they have? What have they encountered? Tell us some horror stories and how you dealt with them with your tenants, with your properties. What kind of maintenance concerns happens? Tell me about the neighborhood. Is there a lot of floods that happen? What are some things to look out for in the neighborhoods? What are good neighborhoods to look out for? What are bad neighborhoods to stay away from? All this kind of information you need to ask your team members, so they'll be able to not only give you an insight in terms of what's the best place to invest in your money, but also show how knowledgeable they really are So when something does happen, they have the credibility and the experience to help you out when you need it. And it's funny because we talk to so many investors, and so many investors just want to stay in Toronto and invest all their money into one rental property so they can tell someone, hey, I have a condo in Toronto in this area or whatnot, which is great. You still have a rental property, you have 2 properties, but had you thought of going somewhere further that was, you know, out of state, out of province, out of country, to have the ability to buy more properties, have a much better chance at wealth, and have a life that's more financially independent, opposed to having one property that has a substantial mortgage and may not have the best cash flow. And yeah, even though it's close to home, you know, you may be taking care of all the tenant concerns, and it can lead to a lot more headaches over time, unfortunately. But you know, that's just something that it depends on your comfort level, and it's not the wrong thing, not the right thing. It all depends. Everyone's different. Everyone has a different threshold when it comes to risk, and some people will take all the risk, kind of like Thermil and I, and go all in with making sure we have the right, you know, knowledge we put in. We've done the right research. We've done the homework before we have our boots to the ground. And some people just don't want to do any of that. They want everything easy peasy. They'll take care of tenants' concerns. They'll walk down the street and deal with every little issue. That's just the way some people operate, and that's not wrong. It's not right. It's just what people are comfortable with. Now, we had already invested out of city. We stayed in our province, but then when this opportunity came up to not only go out of province but go out of country, into Detroit in the US, it threw us off because it kind of came out of nowhere, where we were just going to different meetups to look at, you know, trying to find other JV partners. And then this opportunity came up, we listened to it and thought, wow, the opportunities here in the US are much greater than they are here in Canada, especially in Ontario, where prices were way too expensive, little to no cash flow, and a lot of barriers. We thought to ourselves, hey, great cash flow, great appreciation. We've got a management team on site. We've got a cross-border specialist team that is able to help us out from Canadians helping invest in the US side. And we've got a wholesale, we have a whole team that's US focused for cross-border individuals like ourselves here in Canada. And it's really worked out well in that manner, where we're able to get enough knowledge to decrease our fear and have us more confident to make a move, where a lot of individuals would have said, unless it's within my neighborhood, I'm not investing at all. And as an investor, whether it's going about investing out of country, out of state, right next door, at some point, you're gonna have to gather a lot of knowledge, but after that, you're gonna have to take action, because as we've talked about before on this channel, analysis paralysis is a big issue, where a lot of individuals will absorb all the information they can from books, from CDs, from podcasts, from different meetups, and then they don't take any action. And then that's an issue, because they don't end up, you know, taking action, purchasing a property. But then, you know, we'll meet these kind of individuals, we'll talk to them 6 months later, they still haven't made a move, where we've already built a portfolio of multiple properties in a much different circumstance, and already, you know, looking at different ways to scale, reduce costs, increase revenue, where, you know, these individuals are still looking at how can I go about taking action, and just afraid. Like, I know there's a lot of fear that can go into real estate investing. At some point, you need to gather as much information as possible and take the plunge, because at some point it's not going to get any easier. At some point you're going to have too much information. You need to take action, or else your window is going to get smaller and smaller until it's essentially gone, depending on what you can qualify for, or just things happening in life. If you're someone who's single, who's looking to get into real estate investing, you take too long, you might end up finding someone, begin a family, and then your focus now changed from real estate investing to, you know, having a family and more career focused. And, you know, not to say, like, that's all fantastic. We have family, we love family, but the longer you take to take action, the less chances you are of taking action. Going out of state, like I said, building your team is super important. You need to gather information, not just asking these people questions, but you also want to read reviews on these individuals. You want to go through Google reviews. You want to see any information on their website. You even want to ask these individuals, I need you to give me a couple of references of people who've worked with you. I need to know, like, different circumstances, and it can't just be, you know, we just found tenants, let's say for a property management company. It's got to be, I want to know tenant concerns. I want to know renovations. I want to know the costs, what was, you know, the issue, how long it took, how much it was, what the property management company did to go about sourcing to find better solutions and alternatives and help, you know, solve any issues. And even, you know, when it comes to the legal side, the tax side, the mortgage financing side. So that way you're able to find the best team members specialized in the area you're going after, because you just don't want to go after the first person you have a conversation with. You want to go for the right people with the right experience. And I will say, when getting into real estate investing, whether you're new or old, and I've said this before, your circle is going to change. The people who you surround yourself with before work, outside of work, wherever, they're not going to see things the same light as you. You know, they may enjoy being in their comfortable, you know, perhaps complacent lifestyle where you might be a little bit more motivated to do more. They're not going to understand when you talk about real estate investing, talk about tenant concerns, maintenance, talk about all these different issues or these things taking place and all these economic fundamentals taking place. It's not going to really matter to them. It's going to be hard to address information, especially trying to win them over to perhaps JV with these individuals. It's going to be challenging to force information. All you can essentially do is talk about the knowledge, and then kind of tell them how your portfolio has gone through cash flow, growing, what you've been able to do and how you've been able to do it. And then over time, you will win them over as your portfolio continues to increase. You continue to talk highly about the neighborhood you're going after, showing that you're super experienced and knowledgeable. And eventually, when the time is right for them, they'll come to you and say, hey, I've got $200,000 in equity. I've got, you know, $500,000 in inheritance from my parents' property. I don't know what to do. I want to make it grow. I see that you've gone from 1 to 10 properties and I want the same thing for me. And these individuals are going to reach out to you and want to JV with you. So just remember that in the beginning, they may not be ready for this, but over time, things can change. You continue to do what you're doing, let people know what's happening. And over time, they're going to change and they're going to want to partner with you to help grow their portfolio and do exactly you've done for yourself. They're going to want you to do that for them. And also with going with out of state, province, city, anything, you need to know the city rules. You need to know the bylaws, you need to know landlord tenant board rules, and you need to have the team, of course, that has a very good idea of that as well. And you can find that all on these city websites and in the province websites or the state sites, and have all that information as such. And even reach out to architects, engineers in the cities who focus on those type of means. Even reach out to the city as well, and they'll provide you information on different dimensions, you know, whether it's for properties and for, you know, lot size and everything as such, because you don't want to purchase and invest in an area, have no idea what's happening, and then all of a sudden something happens and then the landlord tenant board is on and they're giving you a hard time, or the city comes to you, you know, because a tenant, you know, released information to the city and the city's coming to you and they're giving you a massive fine and you need to fix this within a certain period of time. You want to know zoning, you want to know the bylaws and the rights and have a very good idea. And if you're not fully focused on that, you definitely need to have a team that understands that. So when you ask them these questions, if they don't know, they can at least point you in the right direction and get that information for you, because you can't be, you know, you've got to have some sort of involvement and know the place you're going into, not just the economic fundamentals, but also know the bylaws and everything as such, zoning and everything. And some places you're going to invest into, they're not going to really care how you operate, how you manage everything, how everything works. And in some other cities, they're going to be very involved in terms of, you know, where a pool is going to be listed, the fencing in terms of, you know, the height, the material. They may have issues in terms of how high the property is going to be, you know, everything. So every city, state, province, country is going to be a bit different, and you want to know their different rules so you can be compliant, because if you're not compliant, it's going to cost you a lot of headaches and a lot of money in the future. And especially with going out of state, you definitely want to have a really good understanding of your property management team in terms of how they operate, have the tenants, the clientele, and understand everything from when payments are coming in, how they go about alleviating any issues with tenants, you know, property management, maintenance requests. You need to know all of that, especially if you're not in the right state or whatnot. And you need to take also conversion into account, because if you're going to, of course, be an investor investing into the US, you need to understand that, let's say a maintenance request takes place, that's worth $150 US. That's going to be closer to about $200 Canadian. So it's going to eat into your cash flow definitely, but you need to understand these type of costs. So let's say, as an example, there's going to need to be a roof that needs to be replaced. You know, it might be $5,000 in USD, which in Canadian could really end up being about 8,500 Canadian, let's just say. And that's a much different number than had it been, you know, $5,000 Canadian. So something to really take point at when it comes to investing cross-border wise. And I know control for a lot of people can definitely be an issue. Some people have too much involvement that they want into the property, but remember, when you're going to go out of state, province, city, I highly recommend for yourself to, you know, not lose too much time. I know I mentioned this already, is you definitely want to outsource things, especially like I said, property management, because like I said, we're investing now in Detroit. We don't want to be going across the border to deal with tenant concerns and deal with these kind of things. We want to hire professionals who've done this before, who know how to handle issues, know how to do things properly with the right documentation needed. Let's say in case there's any issues with tenants, they know how to go how about successfully going to evacuate these tenants out of the property in the event that anything takes place, instead of having ourselves who, you know, might not know the full process and have to drive back and forth. It's just not efficient really for anybody. I hope that video is super helpful, insightful, and gives you all the information to help you increase your knowledge, decrease your fear, and give the opportunity to invest out of state, province, city, country, anything of that sort. I'm Josh Tavares, investor and realtor at the eXp Realty Brokerage. And if you guys are looking to invest in great cash flowing properties with great appreciation, great cash flow, low price point, then click the link below. Let's book an appointment and let's get partnered up. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Take care and have a great one.